Hello guys, it's me, the Guide Knight, and welcome to my second Godot tutorial. We are gonna go and create a platformer, basically a ninja guru that runs around in an endless, on an endless pipe that is endless only in one direction, in the other direction it's not. And let me go ahead and just give you a small demonstration about what this is about. This is actually, I would like to have something without the enemies first. So this is like the endless pipe we're running on, and we have this small glide ability basically, and we collect points in the upper left corner depending on how further along the go we are. And this is this map is auto-generated. It's that's why it's endless. And if we go back at one point, we'll reach the other side, which is basically this pipe that will prevent us from going back. And this is cleaning up the resources. This is something we're gonna learn. And also, let me generate the enemies again. You see that this guy is different size, right? You can kill him with a kunai that you can fire. And so far I have turned on immortality for my player so that I don't die from them because I tend to die very fast. So let me just go ahead and turn that off and see actually how the final game will look like. Alright, so we have these guys, and if we touch them, we die. And yeah, this is basically the game we're gonna create. And if you're wondering why there are different sizes, because we're using basically an HTML RESTful call to a separate web service that gives us some random values, and we use those random values to generate the robots. And those are our enemies. Yeah. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and try to start developing this game. So basically, first of all, you need to have a Godot version installed. I'm using 3.2.3 from the 17th of September. You can download it from the Godot engine.org/download and then /Windows. You can download it for Linux also, or I think also for macOS. Yeah, there are different download versions. And I'm using the standard with GDScript and not the C# version. So this tutorial is about the standard version. So go ahead and download it if you haven't. And you need to create a new project. Just basically create a folder somewhere and select it. So given that you have done all this, you can find basically my GitHub page. It's the Guide Knight on GitHub. And you see like my breakout tutorial and my ninja tutorial. And in the ninja tutorials, I also have the assets folder and the compressed version. You just download this compressed version by clicking on it. It's a zip file, and then you can download it. You can download the whole project basically and run it locally if you want to like try it out. There are still some bugs and some stuff I may want to add additionally, like bits of sounds, maybe background music or something, and also fix up some bugs. So this may change, and the assets will probably include some music in the future. So keep in mind that this is temporary for now. Okay, once you downloaded those, you want to like go to your location where you want to create your game. This is like, in my case, it's under D, Godot, Ninja Run tutorial, and I'll create a new assets folder. And then try to basically extract the files that I just downloaded from my GitHub page. It's this zip file, and I can just extract here. And I don't need this anymore, I can just remove it. So this will have basically give me all my player sprites that I need, and also my kunai, the knife, the Japanese name for knife, I guess, and the font, and basically the enemy robot with some animations. And this is the islands I'm using for my parallax background, and also the pipes we're gonna use for running around on them. And here you can find all asset links basically that I'm using currently for this. They're all free and should be commercially available. Yeah, there we go. So now go back to our Godot tutorial and let's start doing it, guys. Let's start. So first of all, I would like to create a new folder and call it player. And also another new folder, call it world. And let's create a new scene. Let the scene be just a node. And this will be our world scene. And we can just save the scene under world and save it world.tscn. Basically, you can, I'm not gonna go into much detail here, but basically you can create a new scene by clicking scene and then new scene. And you can add stuff here with right click and then add child node. It's a hierarchical structure, so it's object oriented, unlike some of the other game development engines out there like Unity, and where there's like more of an Unreal engine where there's more like a decoration based style, not object oriented. So this means that this thing heavily relies on hierarchy and inheritance. And yeah, basically a scene is something like your prefab there. And you can use multiple times the same scene as an instance of the scene. So basically we created our world here, and let us create our player. So just go ahead and create a new scene. And for this, we're going to use kinematic body 2D. The kinematic body 2D, we're going to rename to player. And this is our player. If you're wondering, I'm just going to save it first to our player. TSN, yeah. If you're wondering why I have only 2D and the script here, not the 3D, and your editor looks a little bit different, you can go here to editor, manage editor features. I have created this, you can create a new, you can create a new profile. I have created the 2D game here. For me, I have disabled the 3D editor and the spatial, all spatial features basically, because those are like only mostly useful for when you create a 3D game, and we're not gonna bother with that for now, I guess, at least. So let's go ahead and add our sprite. You can just use the shortcut Control A, or if you prefer to just add it like that with right click, it's all right. Here we can look for our animated sprite. There are like two different types of sprites, right? There's like the normal sprite, which I can just add once to show you how it, just let me just grab something and put it here. You can specify the texture of the normal sprite by just dragging the image directly into the texture. And now we have this normal sprite player. I can save it and go back to our world in the 2D view. Now I can open my player folder. You see that we saved the scene. This is the world scene. This is the player scene. And if I drag and drop the player here, I will have a player instance of my player scene inside the world scene. And basically I can move it by using those controls, like Q for select, W for move, and E for rotate. Basically Q, W, E, and the top left of your keyboard. You can just use those. Yeah, that's it. We have created this instance here. I can save my world scene, and now I can click F5 or just play here on the top right, and it will ask me to select my main scene. So let's go ahead and select our main scene. This is basically what it is always going to play by default. Like, I can actually select my player scene and it will work just fine, but I prefer to have my world scene where I have more than just the player, like the background and the pipes and whatnot. So let me just select my pipe scene, and you see that's basically, that's the game right now. We have I cannot move around, I cannot do anything. This is just this guy standing there. So let's make it a little bit more interesting. Like, let me go back to my player and just get rid of this sprite. And instead of this sprite, let's add an animated sprite. An animated sprite is basically a sprite that has multiple frames. And for now, I'm going to click the animated sprite, then go to frames, select the empty, and then go to new sprite frames. And if nothing happens, basically like in my case, you can click again here, or you can just click on, there should be a sprite frames here somewhere, right? If you don't have it, let me just try again. Yeah, just click here, should open it. And I have here a default animation. This is basically where I can set up the animation for my animated sprite. I have the speed for which this animation plays. I can have multiple animations, and we're actually gonna have multiple animations for our player. But for now, I'm gonna just do an idle animation and a run animation, because I would like to have an idle state and a run state. So how do I enter this like PNG files inside my animation? I just go to the idle and shift select from 0 to 9, and I can just drag and drop them here. They're already in the correct order. You can see this actually by, oops, sorry about that. You can see this if you go to your animated sprite and then you can click playing. So this is our animation right now. It's a little bit slow, so I would like to make it a little bit faster. So go to speed, the FPS, frames per second, and enter 10. Yeah, this is a little bit more like it, a little bit like wind it up, so that's nice. And you can turn off playing if you want to. But you see that I actually entered this in the wrong place. I entered this under run, and our idle animation is actually not really the idle animation. So I'm gonna rename this to, I can actually use the same name. Okay, I'm gonna rename this to run, and I'm gonna rename this to idle. Okay, this is, never mind. Okay. Okay, this is my idle animation, and this is my run animation. So for the run, I'm gonna just do exactly the same thing. I'm gonna find in my assets player, I'm gonna find my run animation sprites from 0 to 9. Go here, shift select them and drag and drop it here, and then go to make it a little bit faster, 10 FPS. We can adjust that depending on how fast it looks like it to us. And I can now swap between the two animations. But if you see that nothing happens in the preview window, because in the preview window, swapping happens actually here. So I can swap between idle and run, and I can make them playing. And idle. I actually would like my run animation to be a little bit faster, so maybe 12 frames per second, or maybe 15 frames per second. Let me just see. I think I'm editing again my idle animation. That's a little bit weird, so let's try with 12 frames per second. Yeah, this looks a little bit more like it. So if you notice that if we actually press F5 right now, we're not gonna run this player scene, we're gonna run the world scene, because this is what we selected as our main scene. And I can just go ahead and press F5. And this is what we see right now, right? Yeah, there are some things maybe you notice. It's a little bit blurry. This is something that I don't really like about Godot so far. It kind of blurs in the images you import, unless you do something like a little bit of a hack maybe, or a quick fix, I don't know exactly. But if you actually drag this here, and it auto creates a sprite for it. If you drag this here, you can select the import, and then you have the filter on. If you disable this filter basically, and then you make it like, I don't know, 2D pixel, then you can click re-import. Let me just zoom in a little bit to see what this does. You can click re-import, And then you see that the actual pixels are re-imported. And this looks also crisper, right? This is the whole thing is re-imported there. Because I set it as preset, I can also set default as texture. And I'm gonna remove this sprite. But let me check if my other animated sprite, like the idle animation, is still a little bit blurry. So I'm gonna do the same. Basically drag one of the idle stuff here, go to import, and then select, remove the filter, and select 3D pixel, and then I can re-import it. Unfortunately, the default for texture, the default for texture. Maybe I can just set like that and import it. No. The problem is, of course, that we dragged in all those things at once. So we need to actually import that if you want to. Like if this bothers you, this bothers me, for instance. That's why I'm just gonna delete all those idle frames and re-import them again. If this doesn't bother you, you can just it's a little bit weird. Let me just check. Okay, this is to the pixel. Come on, re-import. Let me just... I thought I did that. Maybe I didn't. Let me go frame by frame for the run animation. I think the run animation worked out of the box for some reason. I don't know exactly why. But now we have both. So this is some small things you may need to do when you import images into Godot and they don't look exactly like you'd like them to look. So yeah, now it's time to define our movement, right? We would like to have our player moving around. And for this, we're going to go to project and then go to project settings. And here there is an input map type, like tab. You can click here and you can define, there are also some predefined movements, but I would like to define my own. So I'm gonna go ahead and define move left, move underscore left, move underscore right, jump, and fire. So for move left, I'm gonna like use the A key or the left arrow key. So how you actually define those things is that you click on the plus sign here and then you go to key or a joystick button or a mouse button. If you'd like to have, for instance, a fire, I'm going to bind to a mouse button as well, but probably not really relevant for this type of game. I'm going to go to click on key, and then you can just press anything you would like this to be bound to, right? In that case, I'm going to bind it to D, the move right, and to the right arrow key. And the jump, I'm going to bind to the space. I'm going to bind it to the up arrow key, and I'm going to bind it to the W, because you don't know what kind of like person plays the game and what kind of preference they have. So I'm going to bind the fire to control. And there's that, but this of course doesn't make our player move. Right now, if I start the game, it doesn't move. And also I stopped actually the animation from playing, so it doesn't even like animate unless I enable it. So let me go ahead and click on my player. I need to be in my player scene, not in the world. And then I'm gonna add my first script here for this game. I'm just gonna use the default, and it's gonna create under the resources player GD, like the GD is the extension of the Godot script, and I'm gonna just create the player script. So for here, those are like commands. This is like a function that is defined and called whenever the object is set to the scene. And I actually don't need right now any of those. Or maybe I can just show you that I can print hello GD. I don't know, hello Godot. And I will remove this. And this will print it in our output. Like this is the game and there is the output. It's very useful. I use it quite often actually to define some debug conditions or whatnot. You can also click here if you're interested in debugging, and if you start the game, it will go here, and you have your debugger here. And you have the self-reference and whatever variables you have defined. In that case, I haven't defined anything. So this is just a complete waste of time. So I'm going to remove this debug. By the way, if you have those red stuff on the left side and you're wondering why it goes there, those are debug breakpoints. So you would like to remove them. F8 is like for closing the game, like F5 is starting the game, F8 is for stopping the game. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove this function, and I'm gonna define several variables. One of them is my velocity. In Godot, you define the variable like with a var and then the variable name and then equals something. Like I'm gonna go with vector2, 0. You can go ahead and click here with control to see what actually this is. This is like the Godot documentation inside the Godot engine. It's very useful. You can find a lot of stuff and read it. Right now we are in the vector2 class, and I can see all different parameters and functions that the vector2 has, and I can click on any of them and read what they do and how to code them. But for now, I don't need that. I just want to have 0 velocity right now. I can just define it with 0, 0, like this is the in x direction, so left and right. This is in the y direction, so up and down. And here I'm gonna go with max speed. I'm gonna go with 600. Basically, the velocity and the way things are handled in Godot is by pixels per second. So this would mean like 600 pixels per second, which is actually quite a lot. But let's see if it actually is a lot. Also, we have the max speed, we have the velocity. We would like to have a speed variable, right? Or acceleration. Acceleration, let's see, it's 200. It's our acceleration. Or maybe at least let's try with something simpler, right? Speed, right? So here I'm going to define my function. It's one of the predefined functions. It's called physics process. And if I just type in _p, and the Godot will automatically try to autocomplete what I mean, like process or physics process. The physics process has the delta function. This is basically usually a variable that's 1/60th, like 1/60. And this is because Godot tries to run the game in 60 frames per second. And this is the time that elapsed from the last time this function was called. Like this function is called 60 times per second in the normal case. If it's called more or less, this will be affected in the delta, and you can use this delta to calculate smoother movements and not have like jitter, like have a little bit of slow movement here and then like big fast leap of movement here and then again slow movement. This is very much predictable, and you can basically use this delta. So let's go ahead and set our velocity, right? In that case, we need to see what our input map has to say. So we're going to use an if variable, if input dot is action pressed. Gonna go with move left. Then we're gonna say velocity x equals speed, right? But not quite, because moving left is moving to the, of course, to the left side, and the x increments becomes bigger in the right, on the right side, and smaller on the left side, and it starts at 0. So smaller than 0 is basically minus, so we're gonna set it to minus speed, right? And then else elif. This is how you basically define an else and an if. So this is not the case. The move left is not pressed. So I'm gonna go with move right, and then velocity x equals speed, right? So there's one more thing I need to do is I am going to go ahead and go to the kinematic body 2D, control click to see my function that I need to call here. And I would like to have a function that's like about movement and stuff. So move and slide actually. this is my function I would like to call. It has a lot of properties. You can read what it does, like for instance that it calculates stuff by pixels and so on. So you can read this or just use it. I'm just gonna use it. So I need the first two parameters for my game, which are basically the linear velocity I'm gonna move with and the up direction. This is the normal of the perpendicular vector to the floor, so to say. And in order to determine when the player is stepping on the floor or not. So basically I'm gonna go ahead and call this move and slide function with my velocity, and then vector to up, because our floor is in the horizontal, so up is basically the normal of this floor. And I'm gonna actually adjust my velocity to be adjusted to this returns also a vector 2. Let me go ahead and go here. This returns a vector 2. And where do I see that it returns a here, this is the return value. This returns a vector 2, and this is basically the adjusted velocity. And I also don't need to actually use the delta, because it says it uses the physics delta value automatically in calculations. So I don't need to actually use this thing. So let me go ahead and start my game. A lot of talking, and right now I can move. But as you see that actually nothing really changes, right? I don't flip around, I don't actually stop moving if I stop pressing, and I don't actually go to the idle animation. So let's do this for this part, and then let's continue from this point, from the next part. So what we need to do is actually determine which direction, which way we're facing, right? So this is very easy. I need to say if velocity x less than 0, then we are facing left, right? And if velocity x greater than 0, then we're facing right. And that's it. But how do I actually change that? This is just a compilation error, just because I don't have any code. This is just comment. So in order for me to change this, I need to have access to my AnimatedSprite. And if you want to see actually what your objects have as properties, you can just click on them, and here on the right side on the inspector, you can see it has centered property. I'm not gonna touch that, and has this flip H. So I'm gonna actually go ahead and use this. I don't want to flip it vertically. So let's go ahead back to our script. And I'm gonna go and define another variable to get my animated sprite, right? And you can, there are two ways to do it, with $sign and just the name of the object inside of your hierarchy, the scene hierarchy on the left side, or get node, and then again with the name. For this now, I'm gonna use this $sign. It's kind of convenient. Less things to type. And there's one thing here. It says use onReady variable whenever you get this. I'm gonna type onReady. What this means is let me see, there's another LF expected identifier, and yeah, never mind. So basically this means that this will be created. It will be initially empty or null, and then it will be created after this sprite is added to the scene. And that's why it needs to have this onReady, because otherwise if I just type var, it will be always null, and it doesn't really make any sense for me. So let me go ahead and here call this flip H equals true, yeah, in that case to be false. So yeah, I can, this property here of this animated sprite, you can go ahead and read it inside the documentation if you want to, but so far it works, right? I can go ahead and flip the player, I don't stop, and there is no idle animation. This is because I'm gonna create here an animate player play function, and this animate player function is just gonna change the animation for now, I guess. Animate player, and I will say I'm actually gonna move this here and copy. I just cut it and copy it, paste it here, and also I'm gonna go ahead and play with animation. So if velocity x equals 0, or let me go like equals 0 for now, equals 0, then animated sprite, then I need to go ahead and play my idle animation. Like, the way you change the animation here is just type in play and then the animation name, and there are the animation names here. I have idle and run, else I'm gonna play my run animation for now. So first it will be idle, then I can start running, and yeah, it is not idle anymore. So what I still need to do is have some sort of friction with the ground, right? So var friction, I'm gonna do it 150. This is the friction, and how I can define it after I move and slide. I'm just gonna go ahead and change the friction. So in that case, this is a property of my vector2, and I think I can just click here and there should be a move toward. Yeah, move toward function moves the vector2 by the fixed delta amount. In our case, the delta will be our friction, and I'll move toward 0 vector, right? At least in the x position. But for now we don't jump, so we don't really care about that, right? So velocity equals velocity dot move toward, and then vector2 dot 0, and then by friction. Like, this is our delta. This is the amount we move toward 0 with. So now I should be able to stop. Yeah, I can run and I'm stopping, but there is one more thing, actually two more small things. Like, first of all, I'm huge, and second of all, this is small. Like, my window is a little bit small, and yeah. So let's change those. So first of all, we're gonna change the window. Here we go to project, then go to project settings, click on the general tab, and there should be display window somewhere down below. And I'm gonna use 640 here for width and 432 for height. And for my test width, basically the window you're gonna see is 1280 and 864. Like 1280 and 864. And here below I'm gonna change this, the mode I'm gonna change to 2D mode, and the aspect ratio I'm gonna go with keep. So this means that if I actually start it now, it will add some it will try to keep the aspect ratio, it will not distort my game and so on. But right now the player is too large still, so I'm gonna go ahead and resize my sprite by clicking on the animated sprite, and then there's transform, and I'm gonna use 0.15. And yeah, this should be it. Let me see. Yeah, looks kind of okay. Maybe I can make it a little bit smaller later on, but for now it's okay. And there's almost one more thing, but we're gonna do this, I guess, in the next round, where we actually add the floor and add some gravity and make us able to jump. For this we need a collision shape to collide with objects, but let's do this in the next episode. So thank you guys for watching. If you liked this and enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. You can give me also feedback. It's very much appreciated. And yeah, let's keep on going, and let's create this endless runner game. So keep staying awesome as always, and be healthy, guys. Be nice to each other, and the world will be nice to you, I hope. So Enjoy your lives, guys, and see you next time. Bye bye.